board. Brilliant. So yeah, Emma, thank you very much for meeting with me. It's great to have a second place British Skimo participant on here with me. So I just wanted to know a little bit of your background of Skimo, and for those of you that aren't listening today, what Skimo exactly is.
So my background with Skimo has only ever been Scotland, and I've grown up with skiing throughout my life. And ski mountaineering was something that I learned how to do when I did a season out in Chamonix back when I was sort of 19 years old doing a season. And then I came back to the UK having gained a new sport really and gained a new interest, and found folk in Scotland who did similar. And then I carried on doing lots more ski mountaineering trips abroad and lots of tours around Scotland. And then I discovered, or I was in this group of people, and by word of mouth, Skimo came about to Scotland with Di Gilbert, who organises the races. And I had to hunt back actually on the results. And I was part of the first season that Di organised back in 2012, 2013. And I did my first race, I think it was Never Strange in 2013. And I was an amateur. I was in full baggy clothes, big, fat, heavy touring skis. I didn't have that much money back then, so it was what I had, and I went along and gave it a shot, and loved the spirit of it. I obviously have a bit of a competitive nature, so that helped. And the camaraderie, the sort of group of people who were there were just a lot of fun. And so it went from there, and gradually, kit started to change and then improve. For me, buying it, but also the manufacturers were coming out with lots more lighter weight kit. I was always very reluctant with the skin suit and going full lycra. But I won a series one year. I can't remember which year it was now, but probably 4 or 5 years into Skimo racing in Scotland. And Di, I think, tailored the prize to me, and I ended up with a skin suit. So I had no choice but to then race the next season in a skin suit. And it's now amazing, and I wouldn't go back. The efficiency of the kit and being in lycra, you're running, and it's really good. And it stores the skins, and when you're descending, so the kit's just amazing these days. And yes, I've ventured and spent a bit of money, and I've got lightweight skis and poles and rucksack and everything that can go as light as possible.
Brilliant. That's great to hear that you've started to invest from just just more of an interest in the sport and come so far in it as well. So obviously you love going ski touring, you love doing all this ski mountaineering. What is maybe one of the most exciting or terrifying moments of the sport that you've encountered on your journey with it so far?
Skimo in particular, I suppose. I don't suppose I've been that scared when Skimo racing or on my lightweight skis as such. I suppose the biggest things that I've encountered is when my equipment hasn't quite worked as I'd hoped it would, and that's been when we've had really wet conditions and I've only owned one set of skins, but ideally I needed 2 sets to complete the race. And sliding about on your skis when your skins aren't sticking is quite frustrating when you've got that competitive edge and you want to be doing as well as possible and it's the equipment stopping you. But that was down to my use of the equipment as well. And so I've learned over the years to avoid those wet puddles and to have a spare set of skins, and mid-race when the first set of sort of got really wet, then switch to the second set, and the timing of when you do that. So I've learned a lot along the way, but that feeling of sliding around on your skins when they're not gripping's not cool in any race, or even when you're out touring yourself.
So in terms of this weekend, with the British Championships going on for Skimo, how did that go for you? From the start to the end. Obviously, we know that there was some exciting conditions going on up in Scotland with the weather and everything. So how do you feel it went, and what did you encounter at each stage, and how was it feeling crossing the finishing line, knowing that you'd come second, which is such a great achievement?
So the British Championships last weekend was super exciting that it went ahead and that it was happening. We've definitely felt like we've had quite a big gap between races in Scotland now. And conditions are always variable in Scotland, always challenging. And I think that's what actually entices me to the races, is that you've just got to get stuck in there and just accept, okay, we've got a running section through bog. This is it. Let's just do it. And then there's always snow. Well, you've just got to hunt it out. And Di does an amazing job at that. So the race at the weekend, we sat in the cafe beforehand going, oh gosh, what are we doing? And even driving up to the ski centre, you couldn't see any snow at all. So we got there and there was snow. And then the first leg of it was pretty soft, spring-like snow. And it was a good old slog uphill to start the race. And there was soon a transition to run over a muddy, wet, boggy section. And then again, straight onto another big uphill. And, I find it really hard to start off fast. And that's something that Skimo kind of, if you can start off fast, gives you a bit of an advantage just to get going and get into the front pack, I suppose. And anyway, I was mid-pack straight away, and that felt really good. And I was surrounded by other girls, which was really lovely as well. And, everyone was digging in hard. And my race ended up being, particularly with one other girl, with Katie Henderson, and she was such an inspiration the whole race, because there was several transitions, because we went up a big hill, down a bit of a traverse, up another, then another down, and I was chasing her the entire race pretty much. And she was incredibly slick at her transitions, and that can make or break your race. And I definitely had a few little moments where I just made silly, tiny little errors, and it was, it could just be of just not altering your binding to the correct position, or altering one and forgetting the other, or positioning your poles slightly wrong so that they're not there to support you as you rip your skin off. There's so many fine details, and it's such an art to get it slick. And Katie was amazing at it. And then also, the actual descending on skis, you've got to be pretty proficient to be up there and getting good results. So again, Ursula and Katie are phenomenal on the descending, and having those girls around and being able to see them just pushes you on as well. So it pushed me on, and I was like, come on, get off the brakes, stop making those corners, just get some more speed. And anyway, we did 4 laps in total. Third lap, well, all 4 laps, I started each lap behind Katie, but only seconds. I was counting how many seconds, and I was between sort of 15 and 20 seconds at every transition behind her setting off. And that 4th lap, I knew I needed to just dig in a little bit more. She was very constant, which was inspiring in itself and good at pacing me. And then there was one section where I always gained on her in the middle of the lap, and it was a big traverse. And I managed to gain on her on this last lap, and we got to transition together. We both did a quick transition, and it was the last up, so I just dug in real hard, and and I was able to pull away a little bit. And, you know, there's an element of me feeling a little bit guilty because I've tailed her the entire race. And then I'm just like, oh, sorry, I'm going to dig in now. So yeah, I pulled away from her a little bit, and I think she had a little bit of equipment issues on the last up with the skins. And I didn't look behind, and I just kept digging, and then put in a fast descent back to the finish, and then she was not far behind me. So that was super cool. So yeah, so that's a bit of an overview of my race, I think.
Wow, yeah, definitely seems like it was a long, tough slog, but you got there in the end, and yeah, managed to get on that podium position. And so speaking of equipment, obviously you just mentioned it. What are the essentials that you think, other than maybe skis and poles, that you would need for a race, and what do you usually carry with you on like a typical race day?
So equipment that I suppose, starting with what I wear, is, you know, that's a real fine-tuned thing as well, because you don't want to overheat, because that slows you, but you also don't want to get cold either. And it could just be down to getting the gloves right. And, you know, on our race, we got essentially rained on because the freezing levels were above the summits on that day. So we were getting rained on, I think, our second lap. So we got really wet. So then by the fourth lap, I got really cold hands. And it's like, it's a real sort of marginal place to be with safety and etc. So getting your layering right is hard, and you've got to start off cold, and you know you're just going to get warm as soon as you hit that first hill, which is it's probably the most miserable bit of the race, is actually just standing on the start line waiting to go, because you've got to start cold. But in your rucksack, it's having a bit of safety kit. You know, if things go wrong, there's got to be a jacket in there to sort of stick on to just get the wind off and get you a bit warmer. And so I'll carry that, and I'll carry a thicker pair of gloves. And also I carry just a set of windproof leggings as well, so that again I can cover up my legs, because the Lycra doesn't offer that much warmth. And then avalanche wise, we'll all carry transceiver, shovel and probe as a safety precaution as well. So the basics, if the conditions are very firm with the snow, then an axe and boot crampons will be part of the kit that's required as well. So there is quite specific kit that needs to be in a race, but also a little bit of comfort kit there is always in my bag in case it goes a little bit wrong and I'm stuck up on the hill.
How much does that end up weighing you down when you're actually racing then? Because obviously you mentioned you have like lightweight skis, trying to keep as light as possible to make it easier. So how much does all the kit weigh you down necessarily, or does it depend on the race conditions of the day?
The kit, it depends what kit you own, and there is very lightweight kit for every aspect. So, you know, you can get a really lightweight carbon probe, avalanche probe, or, you know, you might have a really lightweight insulated jacket. So over the years, you know, you start to get quite obsessed with how much things weigh, and you try and get the lightest kit possible. I know there'll be people who would be able to give you everything by the gram and tell you how much exactly their rucksack would cost. I know there's people out there, and I admire that, but I'm not one of them. So I know my rucksack's light, but for a normal rucksack, it's very, very light. But I couldn't tell you exactly.
Fair enough. It seems like it's light enough for you to still be making moves on the slopes, which is good. So yeah, obviously one of the biggest parts of Skimo that's coming out in the news at the moment is the fact that it is now being introduced as one of the newest sports for Milan-Cortina 2026. So I wanted to know what your thoughts were on this sport that you love so much being recognised enough to be an Olympic sport, and, you know, whether there's any British interest that people should know about, and how people could maybe get into it more leading up to the Olympics and getting excited about it.
So Skimo going into the Olympics is super exciting. And, you know, there's a lot of races across the world that are Skimo orientated, and it could be one-day events or multi-day events. And so there's a whole variety of ways of racing Skimo, or just being a ski mountaineer who's light and fast. And so, you know, I would say for folk interested is to start with going ski touring and learning about how the skins work and what kit you need to stay safe in the mountains in the winter, and gradually go into lighter weight kit. The lighter weight kit is for sure harder to ski, and to certainly ski with finesse. So, you know, if you're new to skiing to start with, then, you know, a heavier setup is better to just get to grips with it, get to grips with ski touring, ski mountaineering. And then the Skimo is a more specialist side of that, with it being lighter and faster. Where am I going with that? I'm not sure. With it being in the Olympics, hopefully it'll grow the little team of folk who race in Scotland as well. You know, there's certainly some incredible athletes out there who Skimo race in the rest of Europe and across the world, who are different league to us. But it's still enjoyable to do it here in Scotland. And you know, in the future, I hope to see some of the other events across Europe sort of grow in a broader spectrum, so more accessible for folk who aren't maybe ultra fit, but still want to come and complete something that's a full day event or a multi-day event. And it's something that I would like to do in the future as well.
Brilliant. Last question really is just, what is your personal favourite part of a Skimo race? You know, what is the thing that gets you on that start line? You said is the most miserable part, but the bit that you're most looking forward to, is the whole reason why you take part in this such exciting sport.
That's a good question. Why do I Skimo race? I think it's combining so many skills into such a short space of time, and it's combining, you know, your mountain skills, your skiing skills, your then lightweight fast transitioning of the equipment from uphill mode to downhill mode. It's also that preparation beforehand as well, and just getting everything in line ready so that you're familiar with your kit, and that you're hopefully going to be able to be really slick when racing. But above all that is just the team of folk who come together to do it as well. I think that's massive. It's so social, it's so fun. And, you know, if there wasn't that team, yeah, I wouldn't have as much fun going out on my own, that's for sure.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds like such a great sport, Emma. I'm so happy that you are so enjoyable in it, and that it sounds like such a great atmosphere to be a part of. So yeah, thank you very much for speaking to me today about it. I'm so excited to see where Skimo goes in the future.
Yeah, who knows? I know it's pretty crazy where it's come from here in Scotland to where it's going. You know, when we first started, there was so many of us wearing baggy, like Gore-Tex jackets and trousers. And now it's like nearly everybody's in a skin suit. And it's hilarious how it's changed, but in such a good way. So yeah, it's really defined itself. It's great.
Brilliant.